So we've done the karakia, obviously. The apologies, well, Councillor Matthews wasn't actually even that late, so I don't think we need to move that. Are there any other apologies? No? Okay. Well, that's fine because we don't need any. Any conflict of interest declarations? No? Okay, great. And now confirmation of the minutes. So I move the motion. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Day. Can you please vote? Right. Well, we'll just need to keep moving then, won't we? Right. Okay. No items not on the agenda. Oh, sorry. We don't have all the votes. Apologies.
Can you ask for the people online to vote?
People online, are you able to vote? And turn your cameras on. Thank you. All right. Okay. Oh, Councillor Condi, are you able to vote? Thank you. Is it done? Sorry, Councillor Condi, can you hear us? Councillor Wolfe or Councillor Foon, are you just able to indicate? Sorry, I can't actually see you on the screen.
Mute. Try again.
Sorry about that. We're on mute. Are you just able to vote on the minutes? Right, you think they're just sorting it out just to make sure the proper process is followed?
Oh, still waiting on Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Wolfe.
And just Councillor O'Neill.
Apologies, I didn't hear that the motion had been put. I just saw it on the screen.
Sorry, we were on mute. Right.
And Laurie was yes.
Laurie was a yes too. Okay. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Much appreciated. Right, now, great pleasure to welcome some petitioners today. We will start with David Middleton and Vivian Revel. Please come to the table. Thank you very much for the hard work that you've put in here.
Kia ora koutou, and thank you for the opportunity to present this petition. It was organised by the local dairy shop owner in Tinakori Road on behalf of those who will be directly affected by this particular section of the proposed cycleway, to balance the general city cycleway strategy with some local reservations. And these are concerned with access to businesses, to homes, the Botanic Gardens and to Anderson Sports Park. At the same time as the petition got underway, a group was formed after a meeting with the Mayor and our ward councillors and council officers to look at possible alternatives for cycle lanes in Tinakori Road. I'd like to thank council staff for engaging with us so openly and constructively on our submission, which has resulted in some changes to the trial that will avoid some of its irreversible aspects, such as the impossibility of trade vehicles to stop near homes that are servicing, and added some additional safety measures such as a 30 km/h limit up to where the Chinese embassy is, on the corner of Patanga Crescent. We've still got some work to do on obtaining residents' views on extending the Thornton residents' parking zone, which we're interested in doing to discourage car commuters from further south with it's at present a Kelburn parking zone, and reassigning parking spaces in the side streets. There's some areas we'd still like to discuss with council staff. For example, retaining some of the 10-minute car parks, at least until the expected traffic reduction that these measures will, the cycle lanes will introduce, makes them redundant. The businesses named in the petition rely on these very short-term car parks a lot, and one of them is going to be lost anyway because it's recognised that it's a hazard being too close to the traffic lights. We wonder if thought's been given to providing cycle racks in the area of potential stops for shopping, etc., like the bottom of St Mary Street, to encourage cyclists to pause on their commuter way into the city and to support those outlets that currently rely on the short-term car parks. We feel in the council's paper a long bow is being drawn on explaining access to the Botanic Gardens. Of the 4 bus routes mentioned that go past the lower entrances, 3 are actually limited hours bus routes. They're commuter hour bus routes. There's 1 regular bus route that goes past the Botanical Gardens up Tinakori Road. The top entrance to the gardens, where the cable car is, can't really be said to provide easy access to such amenities as Anderson Park, the Begonia House, the Tree House, the Dell, the Sound Shell, the Duck Pond, Lady Norwood Rose Garden and the Picnic Cafe. It's a lovely walk down, but a sign at the main entrance to the gardens in Tinakori Road says it's a 21-minute walk. It's a hard task for prams, as we used to call them, wheelchairs, toddlers, elderly, infirm and scooters, and anyone carrying sports like cricket gear or picnic gear. Really, access to the top of the Botanic Gardens and access to the bottom need to be considered separately. They're not really alternatives. And neither is the railway station an easy walk to the gardens, though again a delightful walk if you take the Bolton Cemetery route via the rather steep footbridge over the motorway. We look forward to having further discussions on how the success of the trial will be measured, how we can best incorporate safe cycling into our part of the city while enabling other aspects of our community's residential, business and recreational life to carry on and evolve. And I'd now like to hand over to my co-group member Vivian to add to these notes.
Morning, everyone. So I just wanted to add a few details about our submission. I believe that it has been circulated to the council members. But just to reiterate again that the submission, which hopefully is clear in the submission, is not against cyclists and cycleways. It does not object to reduced vehicle commuter traffic, removal of commuter parking, or relocation of resident permit parking, although we have some further input about how that would actually work. So what we are advocating for is a balanced multimodal solution with built-in speed management, which is topical this morning with the 30k. We're proposing that the section between the intersection and the pedestrian crossing at the garden should be 30k because of the, just of the unique situation of that area, really. And 30k is safety for all pedestrians, cyclists, and road users. What we do believe is this is a unique segment. It's 250 metres of what is going to be a 6-kilometre cycle route by the time it gets to Karori, which I understand is where that's going. That is 4% of the route. And what we're saying is it is part of a key arterial route, a connection route for cyclists, but it is also a local neighbourhood area. It has the amenities that David referred to of the gardens, the sports field, and that we a significant amount of short stay parking is required to service this particular small segment. And we just need to come up with, if we have a trial situation, surely we can come up with some innovative trials, not just standard things that we may be going to or you wish to roll out in other parts of the city. It's not a binary decision that is required here, cyclists or short stay parking. We acknowledge that support for cycling has come late to traffic planning, I guess, and is now being prioritised partially because it hasn't sort of been acknowledged in the past very much, but it is being retrofitted into existing physically constrained roadways. And it is not equitable or logical that to support improvements for cycling, that you have a no stopping, no short-term parking is required 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So cyclists definitely deserve better cycling facilities. As part of the routes that will be rolled out in Wellington, there are going to be pinch points, there are going to be areas that need unique solutions, and they will not be perfect for anybody. Compromises are required, including for cyclists in particular sections. I mean, when we get a Karori Tunnel is obviously going to provide a pinch point when you go further up there. But this is a unique area where it overlaps the arterial route, the residents, the businesses, and the visitors to the gardens, and also the sports fields who need to bring sports equipment with them. And it's just, I just think that we need to work together further to come up with something more innovative than just the cycleway that goes, especially in the I know uphill sections are what is a key thing for cyclists, but 30Ks I think is going to help, certainly with e-bikes, but 30Ks for going uphill on a standard bike is probably not necessarily very achievable for some. But as I say, we're talking about a 250-metre section of 6-kilometre route, of which most of the rest of it will have significant cycling improvements, and we want to lobby further and discuss further how a better accord can be arrived at. There's also, we do appreciate, as David said, working with the council based on our submission and the petition, but then there's a number of items in the agenda document that the council officers have provided. I'll just quickly mention a couple of them where we think further work is required. One is, I think you have this in the agenda, number 22 was about in reference to St Mary Street, saying that the residents' parking spaces have been relocated, which is fine. Unfortunately, the residents' parking spaces are already pretty well fully utilised in St Mary Street because of the coupon exemption parking. So the coupon parks are used by residents who use coupon exemption rather than residents parking. So there is actually very little parking available there, which is why we have suggested some changes to Patanga Crescent parking as well, and we would like to work through that further with the council. Then we come to number 28, which is about the 10-minute parking that David also referred to. There are currently three 10-minute parks towards the end of the section. One directly outside the dairy, which we do understand is probably potentially always has been a potential hazard at the intersection. But the other two, which are right back well prior to the cross-hatching at the front of St Mary Street and just at the top of the bus stop, we would like to discuss further why those need to be removed as part of it. They are not contiguous with the one that's at the dairy. They are like 20 or 30 metres prior, and we would like to explore that further as well. What we really, from an innovation point of view, I think the council officers are recommending maintaining the protected bike lane in the uphill direction, and while we empathise with that, we still think it does run out actually at the moment at the entranceway to driving into the gardens, and so we would like to explore whether that could be brought back further potentially, or there could be some other way utilising a clearway, and this could be an innovation for Wellington. We don't, in New Zealand actually, there are apparently no cycling clearways in New Zealand. They do have them in Australia. They do not, I don't believe they're part of Waka Kotahi's guidelines for New Zealand. So maybe we could look at something like that, also incorporating out of clearway hours some protection for sort of guide protection rather than stakes in the ground protection for cyclists outside of those hours. 31 is about the other access points, and David's already been through that, about the other bus routes, etc., which don't really address what we're talking about in the Tinakori Road end here. And yeah, we do, and again, 33 was, we have worked with the council officers to some extent to date, and that has been great. We find them very positive and very responsive and quick to respond, and we would just like to work on that further to further potentially design the or redesign the current plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vivian and David, and again for your very professional and constructive approach. Are you able to take some questions? Mayor Foster has a question.
Thanks, David and Vivian. Two areas of questions. The first one of them is just in terms of the process. At the moment, we've delegated everything with these transitional schemes to officers. What sort of is your experience of that process sort of early on to then we had that meeting and then later on, was there a change in that process?
Yes, I mean, initially it was a shock because we suddenly got told that this was the cycleway trial that was going ahead. But since the meeting on site that you attended, we've had excellent consultations with and discussions with council staff. It's possibly a model to go by. I guess the only thing is we initiated the consultation and maybe the council should have, but apart from that, we're very happy with progress.
Because one thing I would say about that is with the consultation processes is that even though I'm a IT literate person and I read stuff called, I read the news, I watch the news, it came as a total shock to us before we called that meeting. That I know that council is challenged in trying to do consultations, but it just doesn't work. I mean, once we knew about it and we've liaised with you, that has been a positive experience. But really, just the fact that I know, and when I went online and saw all of these documents that are available, I've read through all the Waka Kotahi guidelines for traffic management, cycling ways, etc., all the plans that have been published, and really, I mean, I'm just astonished that I wasn't aware, which is probably partially a reflection on me, I wasn't aware of how much stuff there is out there and why it isn't, why I didn't know about it before. And also, though, particularly, is that all the residents between Botanic Gardens and Mary Street, for example, we had no, before that meeting, which coincided with a very high-level letter that came out at the same time, we had no knowledge of what was going to be happening there. And although we are only talking about Tinakori Road, the impacts of the rest of the Bowen Street, for example, impacts on Tinakori Road, not that we're saying anything about Bowen Street, except that there are knock-on effects which are going to make whatever parking remains or in Tinakori Road, I mean, so much more contestable. It's going to be quite a different...
And that which takes me to my other question, which is you focus very much on the lower end of Tinakori Road. So there's obviously, first of all, we've got the rest of Bowen and into Whitmore. And then obviously you've also highlighted that the gardens and the demand there is on gardens parking, and obviously what's the thought of going further up Glenmore Street and the rest of the route which you referred to. My question then is who is going to be engaged with? Who would you recommend being engaged with in that kind of a process before council just simply says, hey, we're just putting something in? Because that's going to clearly have some significant effects, quite widespread.
So at the moment, my understanding is that from the city to the Karori, is the primary route goes probably to the village, the middle of Karori town or village, rather than right to the bus centre, and then there's a secondary connection. I mean, I don't know how staged the next
I'm thinking
one's.
particularly of Glenmore Street in this instance.
Glenmore Street
Yeah.
presumably might be the next one because it will connect to this first one, and Glenmore Street is different than us because there are no businesses and there is the garden access. There is still garden access, but probably not the sports field so much, and there are some residents. So definitely all the residents, and there aren't that many of them up Glenmore Street till you get to the Upland Road intersection, which I guess is the next piece. So targeted. I mean, you've got all their addresses. Tell them more detail. Don't just say, "I'll go and read this." I mean, give them a summary of what you're actually doing, because everyone supports cycleways. Well, maybe not everyone. Most people support cycling infrastructure improvements, but they have to be accommodated within existing roading. And so you need to emphasise if you're going to remove things like short stay parking. So for us, it's short stay parking because and we're also happy to remove some commuter parking, the small amount there is. But up in Glenmore Street, it's mostly residents and coupon parking. I don't know if there would be such an objection or will be so difficult about the coupon parking, because that won't be local people though. The people who want.
That's why I asked the question.
All right, okay, Mayor Foster.
That's the
Okay,
question.
okay, yep.
Can I just add that up at Glenmore Street is still the boundary of the Botanic Gardens, and I have spoken to the Friends of the Botanic Gardens and the cricket club, whose home ground is Anderson Park, and I would say engage those two organisations, please, in further consultations. I gather the Friends are going to put in a submission at some stage.
Right, thank you very much. No further questions. Right, again, thank you for all your hard work. It's really appreciated and we look forward to further engagement. Right, councillors, any questions of officers on the paper or on the petition and the response to it? It's not compulsory, by the way. Can I just ask one question? Probably Claire, you're the best person to ask. Just to provide a very succinct summary of what changes have been agreed since we had that meeting with residents, because I know you've done a lot, and I appreciate we're not all traffic engineers.
Sure. Kia ora everybody, councillors and Mayor. So the key, we've made a few different changes over the different sort of meetings. After the very first meeting on the 21st, I think, of March, we made a change so that we've added 6 short-term, short-stay parks back into the top of Bowen, and it was recognised that some of those top parks at the Bowen are used for access to the shops and for short-stay visitors. So we were able to put 6 car parks back in there, and we also at that point started investigating this change in parking zone between Kelburn and Thornton, given an anomaly around that, how that works. Following the parking management plan that we received from the Tinakori residents, the adapted one, we started looking at adding more parking management into Patanga Cres. So that's another side street that we hadn't included in scope of changes, but we could see the value of making more of that time restricted and residents parking. We also had another look at the speed, the incorporation of the speed. There's been a lot of big changes nationally. You're obviously about to talk about it, and we thought that we could look to incorporate from the basically the pedestrian crossing outside the Botanics down to Bowen, looking at extending that 30k zone of Tinakori for the trial. And I guess the key big change that came right last week, actually, after quite a few sessions internally and one with Waka Kotahi, was putting in 10 of the parks, short-term parks, back into the downhill direction. So that was planning to be a full-time bus bike lane on the downhill. And based on a few different reasons that we've sort of put in the report, we think that it's tolerable for now, at least. And as Vivian mentioned, this is only 4% of a route all the way up to Karori, at which point, we would probably relook at this again. But for now, that we think adding those 10 back in on the downhill direction is tolerable. And that addresses, I think, quite a significant concern for the residents.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Any other questions, councillors? Oh, sorry, Mayor Foster.
I've got a few, which I think officers would expect on this particular one. Look, just wondered, first of all, in following the judgment which we've now seen on the interim injunction, if you have any thoughts about the process going forward here, and whether you would, because clearly you've written the paper before that judgment came out, so. Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, we acknowledge that, Your Worship, that's being considered at the moment. The reasoning that the judge handed down is still being assessed by the teams. There's a chance we could fall back to a more formal traditional process, but at this stage it's a bit too early to tell. I mean, you can see from the submitters today they're still talking in the terms of TMP, and we know, of course, that's the point that's being challenged, and we need to respect that process. So we'll advise council as soon as possible about whether there's any change in tack in that regard.
Yeah. Okay. Second area of question is just because, and that's why I asked the question of David and Vivian, was that their focus has been just that short section. It's the taking out of every single car park on Bowen, Whitmore, and then what's the thinking about going up Glenmore if you're going to keep that standard, and how does that work? Which is why I was asking the question about who will speak essentially for the Botanic Gardens visitors in particular, and that really concerns me. So, and have we looked at the weekend versus the weekday? Weekday, I get the majority of people, particularly on Bowen, are going to be commuters, but weekend they're not, and likewise if you go up Glenmore, weekend they're not. So what are we thinking about there, and how's that going to affect particularly the Botanic Gardens and weather events on that sort of stuff?
I think that's a valid question. I'm not sure how relevant that part is.
It's completely relevant to me, so therefore I'm asking the question.
No, there is a petition, and the Thornton residents have focused very tightly on a particular part of the network, so I'm not sure this is relevant.
Well, it's going to have to be dealt with at some stage.
Okay, and you of course can discuss that with officers. So can you just stick to the petition if you've got questions about that?
Well, I think probably what I'd like to see then, particularly with that area, is just simply what the plan actually looks like now. I've got what the plan did look like, but I don't have what the plan does look like now in terms of the amendments to it. You may not be able to provide that immediately, but if you could do that, that'd be useful. And just in terms of, so 30k would obviously have to go through a speed limit process.
So you can use, I guess this also relates to Liam's point about needing to take stock, because
I understand that, yeah.
They need to put the speed limit into the TMP,
So that'd be an interesting one. You'd have to slow the cyclist down too. I ride down that every day and I wouldn't be doing 30. That's on a mountain bike. Okay.
Councillor Wolf.
Yeah, sorry, I'm with you now. Just a question in relation to something that cropped up with the submitters. Would we ever consider trialling peak periods rather than 24/7?
I can address that. So we are actually, what we're talking about for the downhill direction is doing a peak hour facility rather than a full time. So that was the proposed change for the downhill. The reason it doesn't work in the uphill direction is because that's where we need that physical separation between people on bikes and traffic. And physical separation is very hard to take in and take out numerous times a day. But that where the speed differentials on the uphill, that's where we really create that sense of unsafety. That's the terrible word. You know what I mean? But basically, that's the key reason we can't do it there. Not to mention the other thing, which is that we are trying to create a bike network at all times of the day, and we're not looking to just provide for commuters. We want people of all ages and all abilities to be able to travel by bike at all times. But yeah, the downhill, because there's no physical separation, it does give us a bit more flexibility there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Sure.
Just because of that, what do we know? I think I've read somewhere that this one, unlike Newtown, is very highly peaked in terms of the cyclists. What sort of data have we got about how many people use the route at different times of the day?
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers on me, but I've seen both the graphs.
Yeah.
So the cycling definitely peaks more than Newtown in the morning. That's what our counter is showing us.
Yeah.
The buses also have more of a peak hour issue than Newtown buses
Understand
do.
that too, yeah.
So both the datas, I don't have the exact numbers on me, but both the
All right, councillors. Are we all linking in to our computers and headphones? We'd like to start, obviously. Just making sure.
Just so you are aware.
Yes, that's fine. Yep, so if people could jump back into Zoom, put your headphones on, that'd be great. Thank you.
Are you there? Can anybody hear me? Because
Yes.
we can't hear Iona at all. And also my video's been turned off.
It's because she's muted.
Kia ora koutou, we will now start. Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to listen to myself echo. All right. No, I'm still echoing. Is that better now? Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. Right. Well, look, I'm going to now introduce the paper very briefly, because I know we've got a big day ahead of us. So look, again, I'd like to say thank you to the community. They've been incredibly constructive, have worked really hard, spent a lot of time on this issue, and it is much appreciated. As people will remember, this was one of the temporary cycle networks that we agreed to in September of last year. Tactical urbanism to make some immediate safety benefits for cyclists and pedestrians. I'd like to give a special shout out to the staff as well, who have done a huge amount of work to listen and engage with the community, and who have made a number of compromises as well. So we are listening, and we're certainly learning from that approach as we go around the city. As we, in the last week, I've been at a meeting around Kaiwharawhara, Aro Valley, to make sure that we meet the needs of each community as we build the cycleway, which we have agreed to. So there are obviously some issues which the community still want to discuss. I would encourage, obviously, the staff to keep going with that engagement, but nevertheless, a lot of compromises have been made, and it will become more challenging if we still want to achieve the outcomes we want to achieve. But look, again, thank you to the community. I'm very confident that we will get to a good outcome, and look forward to seeing the changes made. Just one other point is we've still got some more work to do, obviously, depending on the outcome of the speed management paper, but that is likely to have some implications for the area with a 30k speed limit if that's supported. We just have to look at the area around the Botanic Gardens, because that might not be covered in the school area. So we'll just have to look at that a bit more closely. Is there a seconder for the motion? Actually, Councillor Young, would you like to, just giving you the wall, Councillor, do you wish to speak? Does anyone else wish to speak? No. All right, well, I don't even need a right of reply. That was easier than expected. Thank you, everyone, very much. So we'll just get that's up on the screen. Can everyone see that at home?
No, so that's part of the broken.
Oh, okay. So basically the wording is now up online, and it is to receive the information, and we are voting on that now. Oh, on Zoom, sorry. Yes, on Zoom. Thank you very much. Not with the blue boxes.
But we can't see it.
Let's just go with this.
Just waiting on a vote from Councillor Fu.
I wonder if she's there still. Just use Zoom. Vote on Zoom. Councillor Day, are you okay? Can you? Oh, okay. Thank you. Right, have we, Councillor Day, have you voted? So sorry, I just can't see that on screen. Good eye. Okay. Yeah, I think so. All right.
So that's 12 votes in favour.
Thank you very much, everyone. And now I'd like to welcome the next petitioners, Charlotte Paul and, oh, sorry. Oh, Laurie did vote. Sorry, great. Thank you, Councillor Foon, so that's unanimous. And it's good to have you back, because this is your suburb for the next one. The parking changes for residents at Whare Pūroro Street. So we're going to have Charlotte Paul and Caleb Hume Moyer to introduce their petition. A warm welcome to both of you. Thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Pennant and Kia ora. So I'm going to just introduce our petition and describe the problem with the intersection for cars and bikes, and Caleb Pūroro will describe the parking problem. I just want to make just some immediate comments that ours is just the west end of the street. It's only 18 dwellings, so it's just a small street. The street dwellers had been advised on both topics to submit petitions, which is why we did. Everyone in a dwelling signed the petition except for one that I couldn't reach. And I've spoken to the owner and he's fully supportive as well. So, and everyone I spoke to was very worried about the visibility emerging onto Adelaide Road. I just should make one correction, is that the petition was submitted in person on the 6th of December. It was stamped to confirm and a copy was given to me, but it was subsequently lost by the Wellington City Council. I emailed to check progress on the 23rd of March, and Damien Story of Democracy Services was very helpful but unable to locate it. So I resent the petition on the 22nd of April. Now, just the context for the request for a mirror. The visibility is poor and actually much below standards. And I think you had emailed to you last night or this morning. Tom Cunningham wrote in January 2021 to the council and noted that merging into traffic, you can see only 13 metres down the road, but traffic guidelines say that visibility should be in the order of 35 to 70 metres. And you can see there's some notes that you've been sent as well, which are based on the Ost Roads standard. And actually he got no response to that at all. So there was it got lost as well, I guess. Now, about the mirror as our solution to this problem, one person in the street told me about the mirror, and he's the person who's lived the longest in the street. I think he was actually born in the street, and he's probably in his 50s now. And he said that there had been a mirror, but it blew down. And you will now be able to see in the first picture, you can see that I can't see because I'm a little bit blind, but there is a sort of mark where you can see where the mirror was.
Next to the stairs. So you can see on that strip of land there next to the stairs, that's where the mirror used to be.
Yeah. And he was told at that time, or some time ago, that the council required a petition to replace it. Now, we see the response from the council that says does not install or maintain traffic mirrors. Now, obviously, it's a change of policy, though there are reasons I think they're debatable, but the central issue is one of safety that the council needs to address. So our suggestion was a mirror, but there are obviously other options. One is to improve visibility, that is to extend the no parking area down Adelaide Road. Now, of course, when we actually, you can see on the right, you can see that's how you get out into going down Adelaide Road. And actually there are not cars parked right up, so it doesn't look too bad, but usually there's cars parked right up. So one way to deal with this problem would be to extend the dotted yellow line back further down the hill so that there is proper visibility. The alternative is to slow the traffic, and maybe you should be doing both. But I actually submitted when it was made a 30 kilometre zone through Berrimpool Village that the 50 kilometres should start after Tafe Body Pōroro Street. But actually it's a lot before, so cars really speed up going up the hill. And also many children cross, and children going to Swiss come across the park, and you can see in the first slide, they walk up those steps. So they cross the road just there and walk up those steps going to Swiss, South Wellington Intermediate School. So 30 Ks would help that as well. Now I've heard, of course, today is that the whole city, it should be 30 Ks. But this is an arterial route, and we would hate to think that it would remain at 50 k's. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Caleb Humoya, who's going to talk about the other part of our petition.
Ngā mihi mahana kia koutou katoa, ko Caleb tōku ingoa. Can I control the slides, or is someone else controlling the slides? Yep, just go down to the next one. So if you just if you look here, so this is Te Wharapari Street. It's in Berempore. The previous slides we were looking at the top of the street. So as you come down at the very end, this is a cul-de-sac end of the street here, and that is my good wife in the photo on the left, and it demonstrates how the road narrows quite significantly, and that area of where it narrows is probably about 150 meters or thereabouts. I think it equates to 5 houses in terms of, onto the street front. So we have an issue with, parking on the footpath. So I think for time immemorial, everybody has parked their cars on the footpath for this patch of road, because if you don't park your car on the footpath, it blocks access. So the houses at the other end of the street can't get out. It's demonstrated here. You can't literally, if your car is not parked on the curb, you can't reverse out of that area. Now, I think over the years the council has just turned a blind eye to this, but recently I think there's been a change of policy where they're sort of trying to crack down on parking on the curb, and I just think we have a very strong case for an exemption for this very small part of the street. As I say, it only affects an area which is, I think, 5 houses, and you can't get access in or out. Now, it seems that the concerns might be one of safety. Everybody, I think obviously footpaths are for walking on, and there's concerns, from a safety point of view. Because it's a cul-de-sac, and because it is this very end of the bottom of the hill, very end of the road, you have to slow down to get in there. Cars are moving at 5 kilometers an hour, and the reality is that nobody uses the footpath at the moment. So everybody, once they get to that section of the street, people with children, toddlers, sports people walking up to the park, they all walk on the road. So I don't think safety is a concern, because cars are just, for the way the geography is, are just traveling at a very, very reduced space. The argument could be made that cars shouldn't park there at all, and that would be another alternative. I mean, what I would say to that is, one, that's just not, it doesn't reflect reality. For those houses at the end of the street, they need to be able to park somewhere, and there's a lot of pressure on parking. This was taken at midday, so a lot of people are out. There's a lot of pressure on parking on the street. People are coming in from Adelaide Road. At the weekends, you've got sports people parking there, and so sometimes, for example, for ourselves, we have to park a sort of 10-15 minute walk away up the top of the Adelaide Road hill. So I think we do need the parking. I don't think that safety is an issue. We're just asking for an exemption for a tiny proportion of the street, and I just think it makes really good logic. If you just scroll down to the next slide, so that's just further examples. As you can see, it is obstructed if you park. This car, is parked properly, and you can see the other one can't get past. And if you keep just scrolling down, so this is looking the other way. So as you can see, if you park properly, as we have done there, this house down on the far left, their access is blocked. They literally can't get out. And if you look to the right in that first photo, there is 3 car parks there as well, which wouldn't be able to be accessed if people park properly. So we're just looking for a small exemption for that very, very small part of the street. You're on mute, Councillor Pennant.
I am. Thank you very much.
So I think the speakers are working, but everything else is still yet to be fixed.
So do I need to speak
into your laptop? Yeah.
It's giving up. Should I put myself on mute? Is that okay, everyone?
There's no feedback.
Sorry about this, we'll try and sort it. Is that better now? No. It's coming out of. Is it someone else's computer? No.
The way to address it is that everybody's on mute aside from the person who's speaking. If everybody else is on mute, it should be fine.
It's feeding through the speakers on the ceiling, apparently.
Right.
Okay, try it again.
Okay. Okay, how's that? Oh, it's not good. Okay, Mayor Foster.
I've got to unmute myself. Look, thank you very much for. I've got a couple of questions for officers on the parking side of it, but just in terms of visibility, getting out of the getting out onto Adelaide Road, is it your right turn heading down towards Berhampore, or is it your left turn heading up in towards the city? But that's the biggest concern, or both equal. How does that work for you?
It is particularly turning right down into Berhampore. But it is also, we also don't have visibility turning left, but at least we don't have cars coming the other way as well to watch out for.
And cars would tend to come faster from the city than they would be going towards the city just because of the topography.
Yeah. But the main problem is just the visibility downwards. It's because of the slope of the hill. That means when there's cars parked, you cannot see anything.
Right. Okay. No, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Submitters? All right, look, sorry, Councillor Rush. Oh, we're just all questions of submitters.
Oh, sorry, okay.
All right, well, look, thank you so much again for the work that you've done on this. So we'll just ask questions of officers then and then go into debate. Thank you again, and apologies for all the technical problems we've been having today.
No trouble.
It's okay.
Right, councillors, questions of Mr. Singh. Councillor Rush, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sorry, Brad, I don't see a recommendation here. Is there any reason why we couldn't accommodate these folks?
So what the report says is that we don't support granting a individual exemption because it is still an offence under the land transport rule. To park on a footpath. It's not allowed so it's nationally, it is an offence. And in the paper, we're basically saying that officers don't support providing an individual exemption.
Is that a new rule that's come in? Because we obviously had people parking on footpaths up till last year, and then we banned it.
So Wellington was different to the rest of the country. It's been an offence under the national rules for about 17 years. Wellington had a decision that was, I can't remember when, it must have been like 2005, where a guideline was made or put in place by councillors, which was then repealed, I think 2 years ago or last year.
So there's no legal framework by which we could make a decision today to help these folks?
Legally, it would still be an offence nationally. I'm not sure what the legal ramifications would be to make an exemption to what is a national rule.
Okay, we'll pick that up some other time then. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzsimons.
Thanks. Can you hear me? Just a question for Brad too, really. Paragraph 10 talks about the council being provided with a list of problem streets from Fire and Emergency New Zealand. Is this one of them? Is that why you included that paragraph, or is that just sort of general context?
No, that's just general context. The street hasn't been individually recognised by Fire and Emergency Services.
Oh,
Although it is quite a narrow street, and it probably would be difficult anyway.
And just the other question is around installing or maintaining traffic mirrors. So do we have many situations where neighbours or members of the public do install their own and apply for the encroachment. And where we do have them, like there's some in Island Bay, do those fit into that category, or are they council provided? Like there's one on, as you go up to Milne Terrace.
Almost all mirrors that are out there now have an encroachment associated with them, where the public has installed it. The rest have been installed without encroachment. So those get removed as we find them, where they've been installed without an encroachment license, but everything else that's put up legally is done via an encroachment by the public.
Oh, cool. So there's no Wellington City Council mirrors. And do we provide any guidance for communities about how they go about that? Is that pretty easy for groups to find out? What do they do?
It's on our website. So on our website, there's a link to how you apply for it. I can send through to the submitters a link to that. But what we're offering in the paper is that we get some traffic engineering resource out there to actually look at the safety concern. And if we feel that, best option for them would be for them to put up a mirror, we'd advise them in terms of how they could do that. But I think that there's other options that we could look at from a traffic engineering perspective.
That's excellent. That was going to be my third question. Thanks so much.
Apologies, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm not unmuting myself. Mayor Foster.
Thank you. I figured that might be the case. First of all, Brad, thanks for the offer to go and meet with the residents and look at the traffic safety side of things. So two questions in respect of the parking side. One is I thought that you were doing some work which you undertook to do after we'd made that the overall decision on not allowing for parking on footpaths, recognising Wellington's unique and often challenging topography, that you were going to look at streets across the city and say, hey, look, these are ones where we could do something different and make an exemption for. So while you said it's not legal nationally, you were obviously going down the track of, and we had said, please do, going down the track of looking at different places and saying, well, can we do something different here? So question, why couldn't you take that approach now? I'd be interested in where you've got to with that as a whole, but why couldn't you take that approach here? And the other part, if I can, is just to say, is there any reason that if we can't do it any other way, we can't create this as a shared space? It's in effect that the footpath and the road are actually the same, and the vehicles and the people, if they're walking on the road anyway, given it's a very much dead end, very low speed environment, you couldn't do exactly that.
So to answer the first question, we're taking a citywide approach with that. Because of the parking policy and it requires us to take an area-based approach, we can't look at individual streets in isolation of the rest of the area. So what we're doing is the first cab off the rank is Wadestown, which is what we've started working on now, and we're working our way through the rest of the city. So at some point we'll get to this area of the city and we'll have a look at it. What I'll take you to is the fact that under the Land Transport Act, parking officers do have discretion. The Land Transport Act does say that they may enforce. So there's no, and our parking officers are quite good and very well suited to making these sorts of decisions on when discretion is provided. So provided that there aren't significant complaints around people parking on the footpath, and considering that this individual street is feeding just the residents who are using it in that manner, I wouldn't necessarily see a parking warden wanting to enforce. I can't speak for parking wardens, by the way, but my take on it is that parking wardens would use an element of discretion for this particular street.
And then so would you communicate that with the parking wardens to say you're going to be looking at the street and encourage them to exercise that discretion in the meantime? Because obviously from a resident point of view, it's a pretty uncomfortable position to be trying to make it work, and then have the parking warden turn up and go, well, quite legitimately issuing a ticket, and people go, oh, that's never a great feeling.
Yeah, Kevin Black and I have already had that discussion around until we have a better plan and we get to this part of the city that we would be looking to apply discretion.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Okay, and that issue of potential of shared spaces in this rather unusual circumstance?
It's something that we look at on a case-by-case basis. There are a few streets across the city that are similar to this, and we'll look at it as in a case-by-case basis in terms of shared space. The one thing that is a bit difficult when you get to a shared space where you're sharing vehicles with pedestrians and mums with prams and that sort of thing, is it does lead to conflict points where you've got vehicles using the same space as a pedestrian. So that's usually the biggest detractor to us turning something into a shared space where we've got vehicles and pedestrians, but nothing's off the table. It can be looked at.
Okay, and we don't need to do anything in terms of any resolutions around that. We're just comfortable with your undertakings.
It's up to you, Your Worship.
Well, we'll remember them, Brad, and I know you will too, so thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Foster. Councillor Foon did ask me to put an amendment together, but she may speak to that and that may help. Councillor Foon, you're next.
Kia ora, Brad, just a quick question. Just around the, sorry, my phone's going, so that's just distracting me. It looks like yellow lines and just not parking down that particular stretch would be a solution, but what you were saying is that the parking plan approach is the way to go?
Yes, because the parking plan approach will take an area-based approach. So if we do put yellow lines down that street and say that there's no parking on that street, we do need to understand where parking would be available. So looking at an individual street in isolation is not necessarily the best solution.
Thank you, Councillor Young.
Could we just get rid of the pavement? Take the pavement out.
The footpath?
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about with the shared space.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just take it out completely so that pedestrians can walk on the road as they are anyway. And then there's not all this thing about, you might just get a vigilante parking officer or something if we take the pavement out, footpath out, problem solved.
It is an option, and it's something that we can look at. But I think that officer advice at this stage is that we retain the fact that until a parking management plan is produced, that we rely on parking warden discretion in this particular street.
So Brad, thank you. So the parking management plan, this is kind of one of those things that's been on the horizon, I think, ever since I got elected to council. And there are lots of areas in Wellington that are hanging on for it. Do you know whether it is a mirage or whether it's actually going to eventuate during my lifetime?
It will. So we've started Wadestown. We're quite significantly through the way on Wadestown. We're developing our engagement plan for Wadestown, and we've started collecting. We're almost done collecting all the data that we need, and our engagement plan will tell us how we engage with the community to develop this parking management plan. So we're anticipating that within the course of this calendar year, you'll start to see things that actually happen with regards to the Wadestown parking management plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Free.
You're on mute, Sarah. We can't hear you.
Okay, thanks. Has there been any thought if we did need to relocate parking elsewhere as to things like loading zones? Can that be part of the thinking for staff when they consider this?
Yeah. When we look at parking management plans, we look holistically across everything from bike parks to mobility parks to loading zones to resident parking schemes. That's the reason parking management plans are so complicated, because you're not looking at one problem, you're trying to address all parking problems at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just talking to one of my colleagues. 2 questions, Brad. Since we made that change last year where we said we were going to be ticketing more people, how many people have we ticketed for parking on footpaths?
I do not have the numbers with me offhand. I can get them for you from the parking
could you?
services
Yeah,
team.
just. And then the other question is just, you're talking about parking plans and all the rest of it. This is not the only street where there'll be issues with narrow roads and parking on footpaths. And I guess I'm just concerned about any precedent that we set through looking at one street, and then does that mean that we're going to do it for every other street?
That is one of the reasons why officers are not supportive of providing an exemption in this instance, is because once you provide one exemption, it then opens up multiple exemptions, and it becomes very difficult for officers to manage in terms of which street has an exemption for certain things and which streets don't.
Thank you. Okay, any last questions? Oh, Councillor Rush.
Thank you. Just on that last point, Brad, I know the parking policy prioritises walkers, etc., but aren't we missing out on our residents who are the walkers? And if they in that area are almost unanimous in how they think the priority should be, is that something that we should be thinking about?
That's kind of the reason why the parking policy dictates that when we come up with these plans that we engage with residents, is so those things can actually be brought to the forefront, and so that we don't create a plan in isolation without resident input.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, colleagues. Look, can I just ask you now, so I just had a word with one of my colleagues, whether you want to debate this petition now and then take an adjournment and people can go home or find a room and we just Zoom completely. They say the technical issues have been sorted, but just given it's been quite disruptive today, how you'd like to get this one done? I know it's not ideal, and then we can, okay, great. Right, Councillor Foon, now that you're back, would you like to introduce this by any chance, or would you still like me to do that and then you could second? Okay, I'm going to second. Right, well, look, again, this is the great thing about living in Wellington. We have very engaged citizens who go off and do some work and come back to us with some feedback. So thank you very much to Charlotte and Caleb and all the other people who have been involved in this petition. As you know, we did pass a new parking policy back in 2020 where we did prioritise active and public transport, and where we did remind people that parking on footpaths is illegal and said that we were going to take a stronger enforcement line on it. I accept the advice of officers that, you know, that we do need to accept that parking on footpaths is illegal, but it seems that there is a willingness to look at some solutions to help residents with this particular issue. And so I did talk to Councillor Foon about an amendment. I'm not sure if it was just around traffic engineering or just design options might be a bit softer. But anyway, just to see if that could potentially help. Councillor Foon, I'm sure, might want to speak to that. But I'm happy with the outcomes of that discussion and look forward to seeing what the officers have to say. Who would like to second? Oh, Councillor Foon, you will. Thank you.
Kia ora, and I'd just like to thank the petitioners for coming in, and I appreciate the frustration. But I think we also need to acknowledge that I think we heard the statement earlier this morning that there are just so many more cars in Wellington now. And this is one of the challenges that is going to be ongoing for the whole city. Where do we store them all? I do want to acknowledge the challenge of pulling out of Te Wharepodi Street in this section. And I know that the cars do race, as Mayor Foster pointed out, from the through the south, because you're on a downward slope as you're coming into Berhampore. So actually, I'd like to see this whole strip looked at. It's got ongoing challenges, and we'll discuss some of those regarding speed later on today. But just thank the petitioners for coming in and alerting us to these issues. We understand that it's a real challenge for you all, and but we do need a universal solution, but also understanding that your little strip is quite is different again, as Wellington is. We're not a gridded section as it was designed from overseas. Okay, thank you very much. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzsimons.
Yeah, look, I just briefly wanted to thank the petitioners as well, and I hope that this has given you an insight into the ability of people to sign petitions, bring them to the council and see some comprehensive reply and also hopefully some constructive outcomes. And I also just want to acknowledge the officers for preparing such a comprehensive paper, which includes the law, the discretion, and a really helpful attitude from Brad Singh in terms of providing advice to the residents about how the encroachment approach to mirrors. So to me, I'm very supportive of petitions. I often tell residents to do them. You do get a comprehensive paper in response. So just, yeah, thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No, there aren't. Look, sorry, I should have said in my introduction that I'm very sorry that this petition has taken so long to get to this committee and that we lost documentation. We will learn from that. So I'm very sorry, Charlotte and Caleb, that wasn't helpful. Yes, Councillor Fitzsimons, you're absolutely right. We should always provide a comprehensive response and be responsive to our residents. And Councillor Fern, you're right. We do have a problem with car storage. Like these good people, I am in a Victorian neighbourhood and there's not a lot of space and, you know, we're trying to retrofit for modern times. But we do have a very clear parking policy, which we are trying to implement. It was a very progressive policy and I am committed to making it work still. All right, councillors, if we could now vote. Thank you. I presume no one needs to take anything separately. Yes. Oh, do we? Oh. Sorry.
So that is 14 votes in favour, carried unanimously.
Thank you very much for that, colleagues. And again, thank you, Charlotte and Caleb, but I'm sure your ward councillors will engage and obviously I'm happy to just make sure that's all followed up. Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I just ask, sorry, one quick question before we go. So that addressed the, from what I can see, we just voted on that addressed the access in and out of Te Whanapōuri Street, but it didn't really address the parking issue.
No, we don't generally answer questions, but can I just coordinate with my ward colleagues just to follow up with you afterwards?
Sounds good. I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much. Look, I've just had a suggestion that we could rock through the forward program and the action just really quickly, and then I'm going to take officer advice and my colleagues' advice that we go online, because just in case it breaks down again. It's been very disruptive this morning, obviously, but we can talk about that in a minute. So, Ms. Mueller, would you like to introduce the forward program?
Unless Liam has anything else to add, I would just take those papers as read. If you're doing them together or separately.
If we can just do the forward program. Sorry, I've always got to go back onto my papers. Any questions on the forward program? It's a problem with technology. Okay, no questions. Okay, well, I will move that. Sorry, my computer's just loading, so I'll be able to just remind myself of any questions on the action tracking. Right, so if we can just vote on that, the forward program. Oh, sorry, I'm doing the wrong one. Sorry.
That's
Okay,
14 votes in favour, carried unanimously.
Right, now just on the action tracking papers, sorry, my diligent board's paper is coming through very slowly. Is it Mr. Liam, sorry, do you want to say anything?
No, taken as read, Madam Chair.
Okay, and I'm just going onto my notes just to see if there was anything that I needed to ask. I just had two questions. No one else wants to ask a question. you just had that spatial plan and you're going to report back on progress. How are we going with developing the reporting mechanisms for that? Because it just keeps saying that it's going to be reported back.
Which item is that? There's a number of items on the action tracking which relate to your spatial plan.
It is on. Sorry, yes, there is. Hang on. Sorry, now I've got to look at it. This is where Councillor Fitzsimons, you're right on the paper. It's number 33. It's an implementation reporting system.
Sorry, I have to take that question on notice. I haven't had an update from the team in the last month or two on that, Madam Chair, so I'll report via an email if that's okay.
Okay, that's totally fine. And then I just had one on Johnsonville. That's right. So that one at number 68 about reviewing the provision of open and green space. I guess just my question there is in passing the district plan on the 23rd of June, we're not closing off any opportunities to make sure that the green space is well provided for?
No, I mean, the important thing about that capital spaces plan.
This is fantastic. Oh my goodness, it is thunder and lightning. Colleagues, I know this is quite amazing, but if we can just, okay, hang on. Look, we have got business to do. If we can just finish, can we please? Okay, so Mr. Hodgetts, can we? Okay, yeah, I do want to finish this. Okay, so Mr. Hodgetts, sorry, just around. Can you just all right, okay, all right. Except I hope that you do care about Johnsonville green open space. All right, okay, we'll vote on it. All right, thank you. Oh, sorry. Yes, we are voting. Yep. Councillor Rush, you need to use your screen. Oh well. Oh my. We are voting. Come on. Sorry, I think people are getting a bit. We'll deal with it at lunchtime.
My button's not working. Can you guys hear the thunder from
yes, we
inside
can.
the building?
It's very dramatic in our part of the world. Okay.
That's 14 votes in favour, carried unanimously.
Right, okay, colleagues, very quick consensus decision. Do you want to, we all go on Zoom and find a different part of council to go, or do you want to go home? Okay, so if you can have some advice. Okay. Should we just all do the meeting without Zoom? Old school, like, well, that means that you can't. No, we can't. Yep. Shh. Yeah. It is working.
So the situation, councillors, is the central circuits to the CBD are looking after. We have electricity within this building. The ability for you to meet now depends on the stability of network connections. So if we lose that, then
we could adjourn the meeting. I think this just feels a bit. But as long as people can get home safely. I do want to give the other items in this paper proper due consideration. They're really important. So, all right. So, can I just move in a motion to adjourn the meeting? But colleagues, sorry, colleagues, can you please listen? We need to find. No, we need to find a date for. Councillors Calvert and Paul, sorry, we do need to make a decision. We need to re-adjourn the meeting. So, I mean, is tomorrow satisfactory? No, I've got a whole day of. Just do it on Thursday. Yeah.
Sorry, for those of us online, why can't we continue this afternoon? Because we haven't heard any of that conversation.
Okay.
I don't understand why we're proposing. to
Yeah,
adjourn
sorry,
to
Councillor
another
Conley,
day.
we're just, sorry. So for those online, we're just having a discussion about whether we adjourn it. People do not feel comfortable about adjourning it when we have got, of continuing on when the internet links might be a little bit unstable and we might have more power cuts.
Sorry,
But
people online didn't hear Sean's thing to us that was saying that the city power is down, and so
Yeah,
we're
look,
on a generator, and
Madam
it's just
Chair,
going to be
I've got
hard to
Sean
keep it
here.
going. Can he share that again, because people online
Yeah,
didn't
I've
hear
got him
it.
here, so we'll just share that quickly. But I think where we're heading is the right decision.
Okay, so for people online, we're talking about moving it to the 16th just because of the instability of the internet at the council. And people may, if safe to go home, may wish to go home, make sure families are okay and all the rest of it.
Yes, essentially we will continue to have electricity to this building, but the internet to the city now relies on the battery backup power. It should last for another 4 hours, which will give them time to put it back on again, but the internet may become unstable for your meeting.
Right, thank you. Councillors online, sorry, are people comfortable with adjourning to the 16th?
You'd cut into the finance and performance. Is that the plan?
Yeah, so that's the plan. And Councillor Calvert is advising us, it just depends how long we want to talk on the items on her agenda.
You know, this has been so fragile today that I think it's best to take Sean's advice.
Yeah, I think we should adjourn. So, sorry, colleagues online, are you hearing all this and in agree? Sorry. Can everyone just be quiet and sit down just so that we can finish this discussion properly? Okay, because we've got people